Welcome to Soul Knowledge. I'm your host, Rocky K of Tune Into Wellness. We are souls having a human experience, and this podcast is where we remember that. Your soul has lived lifetimes. It has a history, a purpose, and a wisdom that goes deeper than anything your mind can analyze. My work through Reiki, hypnotherapy, past life regression, subconscious healing, and intuitive transformation is to help you not just learn about your soul, but to actually know it. Here I'll be sharing real stories from real sessions, lessons from the unseen, and truth-telling about what healing really looks like. The messy, mystical, holy, human, sometimes hilarious, often uncomfortable, absolutely life-changing parts of it all. And I'll warn you now, if you don't like the honest language or the occasional well-placed F-bomb, this is not the podcast for you. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can say is, fuck this, I'm done repeating this pattern. So let's take a breath. Tune in. Let go of what you think you know. And let's drop into the wisdom your soul's been trying to give you all along. Welcome home. Welcome to Soul Knowledge. There is something that happens when women tell the truth. Walls come down. Armor softens. Power rises. Soul Speak is an event that is happening Sunday, March 29th from 4 to 7 p.m. And this is not just another event. It's an experience. Powerful women, powerful stories, transformation in real time. We'll sip mocktails, share munchies, connect deeply, and witness what happens when women gather with intention. If you're ready to feel inspired, expanded, and reminded of your own strength, this is your invitation. Soul Speak. Be in the room. And if you're finding this after March 29th, I can assure you there will be more. So please check our website and save your spot, buy your ticket, and join us. Hello and welcome back to the Soul Knowledge Podcast. This is Rocky K with Tune Into Wellness, and today we are back with a part 2 of this 3-part series. In the last episode, I shared my Aunt Loretta. I shared her story. She was killed by a man who had been stalking and harassing her. Today is the time for my story. I am telling you about the time I was stalked. This went on for about 14 months. I'm going to tell you the way I remember it. There may be pieces out of order. There may be pieces I skip out. Actually, there's a lot that I'm going to skip out. Somewhere in my attic is a file with dates and reports and specifics. But if I'm being honest, I really don't want to reopen that folder. I've done a lot of work around this, and I really don't enjoy reliving it. I am going to tell it today because I believe this is for something bigger. So let's begin. At the time, I was living in Hawaii. My husband was stationed at Marine Corps Base, Kaneohe. We lived just outside the back gate, about 4 or 5 houses from the gate. It was an easy drive. One Monday morning, I was driving to the gym on base, and I was really anxious. And I am not an anxious person, so I started to try to rationalize it. Did I spike my blood sugar? Did I eat something weird? Why does my body feel like something's wrong? And then I remembered that this past weekend, my girlfriends and I had gone out to dinner and dancing, and a guy had approached us at dinner and asked if I worked out at the base gym. I said yes. We chatted briefly. It felt normal. He left. I moved on. As I was driving, I wondered, was I anxious because of him? I go in anyway. I see him. He comes up, says hi. I keep it short, very short. I don't want to engage. I work out, but I'm anxious the entire time. And as I'm leaving, I get this overwhelming feeling that I am going to be raped. It sounds so dramatic. It sounds insane. And I can assure you, I felt really insane even thinking it. But that was the thought. I felt like somebody could easily follow me home. I lived right outside the back gate, so there's no time to lose someone. And when I was sitting at that last traffic light before leaving base, I noticed a guy on a motorcycle behind me. I thought this guy could easily follow me. He could follow me home and know exactly where I lived. I brushed myself off. I said I was being ridiculous. And I continued home. That guy on the motorcycle was following me home that day. A few days later, I had dinner with some military spouses. Our husbands were deployed. And when I came home, the babysitter was leaving. And we always walked our sitters out to the car. And when I came back inside, my sliding glass doors to the pool deck were open. I was irritated. I shut and locked them, got the girls in the bed, FaceTimed my husband. I laid down. And as I laid there, staring at the ceiling, I felt like I was being watched. In my mind's eye, I could see someone standing next to my bed, dressed all in black, black hood, black jacket, black pants. I told myself it was my imagination, said my prayers, and went to sleep. The next morning, I went to open the front door, and the deadbolt wasn't locked. I always lock my deadbolt. But the handle was locked. And I never lock the handle. The only time I lock the handle and not the deadbolt is when I'm leaving the house. And then it hit me. Someone had been in my house last night, and they locked it on their way out the door. I dropped my girls off at school, and I went to the gym, and I was really trying to sort out what had happened. That guy from the dinner that I met the past weekend had approached me and asked if I was okay. And I was like, "Why are you asking?" And he said, "You look upset." And I looked at him and I said, "Someone was in my house last night." And then I added, because I wanted to see his reaction, "For all I know, it was you." And the color drained from his face. He didn't even know where I lived. And I could tell it was not him. I walked away, but I didn't return to the gym for weeks. There were lots of signs throughout this process. Cigarette butts started appearing in my yard, always sets of two. One day I even had a Chuck E. Cheese balloon that appeared in my backyard. My backyard is surrounded by an 8-foot brick wall. Balloons don't just float in my backyard. My girls saw it, got excited, and then one of them stopped and was like, "Mom, this is from the bad guy." So we cut it free so it would float away. The next day, it was catty corner from my house, tied to random objects with a shortened string. I walked across the street, picked it up, and thought, what the actual fuck? At the time, I had a friend move in temporarily, waiting for base housing. Something I had offered before any of this began, but when he arrived, I had to tell him what was happening. He installed rods in my sliding doors, and I went through and super glued all the jealousy windows shut. Every slat of glass. I did anything I could to keep this house more secure. I fortified that house like my life depended on it. Because it did. So eventually, I went back to the gym. I needed to go back to the gym because I needed to know who was doing this. I told a trusted employee what was happening. I had known him since we lived there before, and he called a military police officer he knew. And while we were all standing there talking, a man on a motorcycle pulled up. The employee froze, and he looks at me. He's like, "That is not right." The man walked inside. He normally came dressed to work out that day, he went into the locker room first. There was a red flag. I went on the elliptical like normal. The guy from dinner happened to be in the gym and he came over to check in to see how I was doing. And I asked him if he would stand there and talk to me for a little bit because I thought this guy might be the one that was coming into my house. And so he did. He sat there talking to me as the guy from the motorcycle walked in. The second he saw me talking to another man, you could see it on his face. He went into the gym and was lifting, but there was a jealous rage. He stared. He lifted weights harder. He was like literally unraveling, and it was so obvious. The guy that worked at the gym had walked out and got his license plate number for me, just so I knew who this person was. I wanted to have some sort of upper hand. Eventually, my husband returned from deployment, and we went into the gym together. Guess who walked into the gym behind us? That same guy. My husband had been complaining that his shoulder was hurting, and he wasn't sure he could lift real heavy. I giggled because I knew at that point, when that other guy walked in, that he would be just fine. And it was funny because his shoulder did feel fine. He even lifted heavier than he ever had doing a military press. But during the workout, it was like a silent standoff, a little pissing match without words. The stalker would only stare at me when he knew my husband couldn't see me. It was slick. It was calculated. And again, it kind of made me feel like I was the crazy person because my husband literally never saw him look at me. Eventually, I had enough nerve to go back to the gym and to go to the gym by myself. At the time, President Obama was in the gym working out, and he was coming on a regular basis. So the gym was swarming with Secret Service. The base was swarming with Secret Service. My neighborhood was actually swarming with Secret Service. So I felt like I could go into the gym and get a workout, and I would be okay. That night, I had taken NyQuil the night before because I just wanted to sleep. And that morning, I had woken up eerily calm. And there was something in me that knew he would be there. I knew it was the day I needed to say something. The military police officer I had been speaking with told me I needed to be very clear. He said, "Tell him not to look at you, not to be near you." And he said, make sure there was no doubt in the words that I said, so it was very clear. So he was there with a friend, and I walked up to them, and I said, "What the fuck are you looking at?" And I told them that if I was ever in the gym, that they were not to be near me, not look at me. And their faces, they were shocked. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We weren't looking at you." It was so weird. It felt rehearsed. It felt like they were a team. And in that moment, something clicked. When I had lived in Hawaii years earlier, this had happened before. When I lived in Hawaii before I lived on base, doors would be slamming while I was in the shower. Someone was watching me sleep. I even called base 911 and told them where I lived. And they didn't know where I lived. They didn't know what street it was. And I lived on the main road on base. I remember running out of my room after there were not police there for a while, talking to my girlfriend on the phone. And they were down the street and across. And I'm like, yo, like, I'm up here. What in the world were they doing? And I was just like, what kind of military police? What are they doing here? And it was just so weird to me. That one, they didn't know where I lived. And then two, didn't even go to the right house, not even close to the right house. And then it was interesting because I was helping a neighbor do a security clearance interview. And I had mentioned that my neighbor and his boys, I asked them to help me keep an eye out because of these people I thought were coming into my home. And she looked at me and she was like, you know, you're not the first person to say this. She told me that there were rings of Marines breaking into homes of deployed wives, watching and covering for each other and peeping. Like they were peeping Toms and they were like doing this. And it was well known. And that suddenly everything made sense. Like it was like, okay, this is really fucked up. Okay. And I remember one of the times coming onto base and I didn't have my ID. And the gate guard looked at me and he said, ma'am, you don't need your ID here. And the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I understood what he meant. He knew me. That gate guard was a military police officer. So this was a thing. This was something that has happened for years and years on this base. And I could bet this base is not the only one that it has happened on. Groups of single Marines stalking women, being peeping Toms, coming into the women's homes to watch them. So with my stalker, things happened. He would show up at the mall when I was there with my girls shopping. He would conveniently be jogging by the elementary school when I would take my girls to school. I finally just needed this to stop. I wanted to get a restraining order. And what I realized in the process was that the military police and the police out in town, they don't necessarily work together. So a lot of things that had happened on base, that's where they stayed. And the things that happened at my home didn't intersect with the military police. I am grateful I did have a lot of really good police officers that did help. But I also had some both in town and on base that weren't helpful. They thought I was crazy. And honestly, maybe I was crazy at the time because I can assure you all that was doing to my head and my mental state was not good. Did I mention that my two girls were there? What that does for a very protective mom and her head? Y'all, I can't even. So either way, to get this restraining order, I had to go to the base military police to get the information to file this restraining order. The only thing I had about him was his name and his license plate for his motorcycle. I went in and an officer gave me the information that I needed for the restraining order, and I went down to downtown Honolulu and filed the restraining order. The temporary restraining order was delivered to him, or at least I thought it was delivered to him. It turns out he has a very common name. And when they gave me the information, they gave me the wrong guy's information. Correct first name and last name, wrong middle name. I had come back to get more information from the military police, and one of the officers pulled me aside and asked me how I got the information, and I explained. He told me that this other guy was currently downtown at the courthouse trying to remove the temporary restraining order because it was put on him, and he was the wrong guy. I asked what he looked like, and he told me. He definitely had the wrong guy. So I told him to let him know that I was on my way down there, and I went to the courthouse and removed the restraining order from him and then filed it for the correct one. I was given a court date, and thankfully, my husband was in town for this, so he went with me. I went in front of a judge, and she had read all the things that I had turned in and submitted, all the dates and times and everything that had happened, and she said it was all circumstantial. She asked if I ever physically saw him at my house. I personally had not. My cousin had, but she did not live in the state. She had seen him one afternoon when he knew I was gone, and he thought he would be at the house alone. But my two cousins were staying at the house, and they saw him in the backyard. But because they were not there at court, it was my word against his. So I took the option of not proceeding and not allowing the judge to rule in my favor or his. Because if I had allowed her to make a ruling, then anything that was stated that day would never be allowed to be used again in any kind of trial. And I did not want to give up that power. I went home, defeated. I felt helpless. And I felt like there were not people out there that truly wanted to protect me and help me. That court hearing was in the fall. He had told the judge that he was leaving before the end of the year. I couldn't have been happier hearing that. But then I was really sad and scared when he was there after the new year. After that court date, he didn't try to hide. He would literally park in front of my house. He knew I could not do anything. And when he didn't leave after the new year, I sought out more help. A neighbor that had some connections was helping me. As he helped me, that guy was getting in trouble. He was being questioned by higher-ranking officers. I grew more and more anxious, more and more terrified. And there were a few days where my anxiety peaked at its highest. I felt like he was going to kill me. And to say I was terrified is a complete understatement. And I can tell you, for those whole 14 months, my intuition guided me, and it helped me so much. This guy didn't come around all the time, but I would have dreams, very, very vivid dreams, on Sunday nights, going into Monday mornings about him, and I would know that he was showing up that week. I also had a moment one night where I woke up and I knew someone was in my house, and everything in my body told me not to move a muscle. I was frozen on that bed, and my intuition told me, do not get up. So I didn't. And when I woke up in the morning, there were clear signs someone had been in my home. So when my intuition made me feel like he was really angry and he was going to kill me, I believed it. I remember a client the one day I was training her, and she looked at me and asked if I was okay. And I remember looking at her and telling her no. And I broke down and I cried. I was so afraid. And the whole time I kept thinking, don't do this to my family again. I begged God to not let him hurt me because I didn't want to put my family through this again. So at night I prayed. I prayed for protection. I prayed and I imagined angels standing guard around my house. I imagined Archangel Michael's shield keeping me and my girl safe. It was the only thing I could do to even kind of sleep, but let's be honest, I wasn't sleeping. I had 3 days where I didn't sleep hardly at all. Then the one day it hit me. I looked at the calendar. The one night as I was falling asleep, it was January 11th. That night, as I was trying to fall asleep, terrified, anxious that I wasn't going to be around the next day, that was exactly how my aunt felt on that day, exactly 20 years before. It was the 20th anniversary of my aunt's murder, and here I am, curled up in a ball, afraid that I was going to die, that I was going to be killed. I prayed so much harder. I woke up the next day, thankfully. My aunt didn't, but I was blessed enough to wake up. A couple of days had gone by, and then I finally got word that he had left the island. The biggest chunk of the story ends there, but because he worked with other people, it really didn't completely end. I had the neighbors tell me they would see somebody else sit catty corner from my house and watch me. And there had been a car that I was seeing on a regular basis, and during the time of the stalking, I was following a car that happened to be a car that my stalker drove around in. I was following them half the time, and they were in the parking lots with me. And so then I started to see this other Jeep on a regular basis. And right before I was going to leave the island, it was one of our last days in our home. I remember it was Easter, and in the middle of the night, I woke up. I could feel somebody in my house, and I had that same frozen feeling. Dan was in the house, and he was sleeping. And everything in my body said it again. Do not move. Do not wake up. Do not do a thing. Do not wake up, Dan. And so I didn't. And when I woke up in the morning, I went around the house to open the windows, and I found that one was left open. Someone had been in my house the night before. I have not seen or heard anything since then. I have done a lot of healing work around this. And as much healing as you do around situation, it doesn't always make it easy to tell and to relive the fears that settled into your bones. I don't let him control me. I don't live in fear. And I will tell you that I will never second guess my gut instinct. And I have told my girls time and time again to always trust their intuition. Do not second guess it, because it is not wrong. It is going to save your life. So that ends my story. Next week, we get to hear our story. This is the part of the story that I have never told publicly. I have spoken about it in small groups, but this is where the power of healing comes in. So I hope you come back and you listen to what happened and how I did a super seriously cool ancestral healing. Until next time, I hope you have a magical day. You find ways to heal and alchemize the hurts, the wounds, the trauma that has happened in your life. And if there is a way that I can help or support you on your journey, please reach out. Until next time. Thank you for tuning in and for doing this work, not just for yourself, but for everyone connected to you. If this episode stirred something in you, trust that. Share it, leave a review, send it to someone whose soul needs it. Your voice and your ripple matter. And if you're ready to go deeper, to explore your past lives, heal your patterns, reconnect to your soul, or work with me one-on-one, head over to tuneintowellness.com or connect with me on Instagram. Until next time, trust what you feel, honor what you know, and remember, your soul already has the answers. Be bold, be light, be you. I'll see you next time on Soul Knowledge.